What do I know about literacy? Quite a bit. Now, I'm really on about this, so if you don't go home with anything else, go home with this. Literacy involves receptive and productive processes. These are the three strands. Oral literacy, speaking and listening. Yeah, copy it down so you go home with it. Oral literacy, which is the speaking and the listening. The written literacy, which is the reading and the writing. And visual literacy, which is the viewing and the presenting. You know, you're presenting a film, you're presenting something like that. Now, all of them are interwoven. They're all important if students are to understand and create oral, written, and visual forms of communication. Now, visualise that child. All right? Now, language is a complex behaviour that determines our ability to think and interact with the world. By the age of 5, children have been exposed to thousands of words in a whole range of different contexts, including music, rhymes, and literary language of stories. Many children younger than 5 years of age already understand that specific signage, before they arrive at school, that specific signage, written signage, conveys meaning. Now, learning to read and write cannot be separated from listening and speaking. And now, effective interpretation of text is closely linked to listening and speaking. And learning to create texts is developed through speaking and writing. So we start with the oral, we move into the reading, and we move on to the writing. Soon you people will be beginning to realise that I am so passionate about getting the oral language right. If we haven't got the oral, Brendan's sick of hearing me say about this, but we haven't got the oral language right. We can't read and we can't write. Have a little read through that to yourself. When I tell you, Elsie, Nellie and I put together some assessments for oral literacy. Okay. Now, one of the things we had children do, we're asking children to do, is draw a picture of your family. Everyone in your family. Draw a picture. Right? Now, this little girl, now, this is after they've been at school just for a few weeks. Just a picture of their family. Right? Then the teacher had said to the child, "Tell me about your family." And this is what this little girl said. Now, she'd only drawn the people in her family. I wonder if you can tell me, as you read through that, tell me something about what the little girl said. But what she's doing is bringing in to her speech things that weren't in the text, that weren't in the picture. She was giving us extra information that wasn't in the picture she had drawn of herself, mum, dad, and her brother. So she had so much control of her oral language that she was able to bring to the situation things that weren't actually in it. So she was adding. Now, keep that in mind. Look at the sentence structures. Look at the verbs. Look at everything in there. That's what you've got on. See, I'm on about this oral literacy. Come on. Right, now let's have a look at the next one. Again, 5 years, 3 weeks. Now tell me about this little boy. Where's the pronouns? No pronouns. Nothing extra really described a little bit. Definitely no verbs. So, no, he's lacking in so many things. So think about oral language and what in general spoken language. If he hasn't got the spoken language and the words in his head, he has got real problems, hasn't he? Right. Now, we have to teach the less prepared children. It's our role to fill those gaps. And these are children who are often very hard to accelerate because we may not have recognised the extent of gaps in their spoken and thinking vocabulary. Right, let's move on to the next one. Now, Marie Clay, Dame Marie Clay, whom you will know from New Zealand, who developed reading recovery. She developed reading records very early on. That was one of the things that I taught back in the 70s, as I said, to other people, how to take running records, how to analyse them properly. Right. Now, she also developed the oral language assessment, what was called the Record of Oral Language. Now, this has been a huge influence on my teaching career and also on my work with the PMs. From when I started at Puketi School in '85, all 5-year-old children, after they'd been at school 3 to 4 weeks, their classroom teacher took the record of oral language. And those children who were at risk were quickly identified, and we gave them doses of oral language, not doses of vitamin C, doses of oral language, because I knew that those children, by the time they got to 6, because every child in New Zealand has to have, at age 6, 3 weeks either side, a 6-year-old diagnostic survey. Now, any child who is below par has to go on special programs or reading recovery. Now, I was tracking those children all through their first year at school. So the first year at school, these children had, there was a strong focus on oral language development. Right, Bernard? Now, you have a look. Marie Clay really influenced a lot of the work that we did with the PMs, from the very early PMs to the current PMs that you've got there. Now, if you have a look at that first one, it's a 3-word sentence, and look in the pic and you'll see a 4-word sentence. So those early sentences are the spoken sentences of a 3 to 3.5-year-old. Now, if a child does not control the spoken language of a if they are not controlling the spoken language of a 3 to 3.5-year-old, and they're chronologically 5, you cannot expect to teach them to read. So get your analysis going. They have to be able to control it in their head. Right. Now you see how the second one has got the adverbial phrase, so all of those, you add them together, they're the spoken language of a 3 to 3.5-year-old. Now, I really want to emphasise this with you, please, is the big picture. Now, we can do, it's our role to facilitate the conditions for learning. Now, we have to assess, but we have to assess the 3 strands of literacy. We've got to assess the oral, the reading and the writing to get the big picture, not just intermittent. Take a child and you've got to take the oral, the reading and the writing. You have to analyse it. Now, when you analyse it, you correlate the information from the 3 strands, and I can tell you from years, I'm 99 years old, from years of it, not true, for years of experience, what you hear, say in the when they're talking to you. You can see it happening in the reading and you can see it happening in the writing. I'll guarantee that. If there are weaknesses there, there's weaknesses there, and there's weaknesses there. If there are strengths there, they'll be there and they'll be there. So correlate that information from the 3 strands, please. Now, you've got the information, now you've got to get an action plan. There's no use doing all that without an action plan. And that has to be, I see that they've given you out something from the RARs, where the reading record's taken, where the analysis is done, and where the action plan is. You must have an action plan. It's no use digging the garden and then not doing anything about planting the vegetables, okay? Right, now, give that, in the action plan, make sure you give feedback to your senior staff, give the feedback to the parents, and give feedback to the child. Tell the child, you're doing this well, but this is what I want you to do next. And this will make you a champion. And so don't forget feedback. I'll tell you one secret that I always used to do when I would go into a classroom. If I'd sit down beside a child and they were busy doing something, I'd say, Cherie, tell me about what you're doing. And she says, I'm filling this in because Mrs. Smith said I had to. Now, that's not a reason for doing something. A child has to understand what they're doing and why they're doing it. They're not marking time till playtime when they can go out and play footy. They're doing it for a purpose. So every child, everything that a child does in the classroom, they must know what they're doing and why they are doing it. Right. It's our responsibility also to build vocabulary, oral, written and visual. Read often to your children, not just when they're 5 and 6, but right through. Read to them, please, and choose your books carefully. Reading is learned not just by reading, but by listening to the written word. At all levels, in the school, build word consciousness, awareness of words, their meanings and uses. Teach children how words work. Develop class word banks. Use thesauruses and dictionaries. Increase children's knowledge of verbs, adverbs, adjectives that convey imagery and deeper meaning to the text. Now, our most competent readers have a wide range of in-the-head vocabulary that they can use in all literary situations. Vocabulary is the key to a wider world. I'm excited about technology. As Cherie said, the letter I wrote to the company, wrote, hand-scripted. Technology excites me today and how it can be used in classrooms to further our children, further our Aussie children, further our Kiwi children. I want our Aussie and Kiwi children to be very important people in this world. We're not down under for one reason only. We are here to make a difference to this world that we live in. We all know this one, don't we? Model the process with the learner, share and guide the process, and gradually release that responsibility.